Chapter 27. Extortion. It was now Thursday, 2 weeks from the day Gabriel had been stabbed. Michael Hendry sat in the Green Pepper Cafe, his plate loaded with spiced chicken and macaroni. The place had been empty in the days after the murder of Owen Campbell Moore, but customers had drifted back once the cops took down their cordons and stopped hassling everyone who came within 100 metres. The customers shot pool, dealt drugs, and fattened the owner's bank balance by stuffing coins into the fruit machines, while the radio was tuned to an internet station bringing news and music out of Kingston, Jamaica. Michael might have had the same colour skin as the rest of the customers, but he was a middle-class English boy, and he'd never have been able to infiltrate the slasher boys without Gabriel's authentic Jamaican heritage. Michael glanced at his watch, a gold-strapped Bulgari which he'd bought off one of the slasher boys for less than a tenth of its legitimate value. Major D was 40 minutes late, but that was normal. Making people wait around was D's way of showing that his time was more important than yours, and you showed respect by not complaining about it. Michael was chewing the last piece of chicken off a drumstick when D finally pulled up outside in a Ford Mondeo. He had a mean-looking sidekick called Colin Ragg in the back. D owned some fancy cars, but the discreet wheels meant he was on serious business. As he stepped into the passenger seat, Michael had his gun strapped around his waist and 10 grand's worth of nanotube reinforced fabric sewn into the lining of his grey top. "What's occurring?" Michael asked, as he slammed the door and pulled a seatbelt across his chest. "We tracked down the runt," Major D grinned. "I thought you'd like to ride along after what they did to your girl." Over the past 2 weeks, the slasher boys had been devoted to finding runts. But the runts knew D's crew was after them, and they'd stuck to their home turf on the opposite side of town. "Which one?" Michael asked. "Aaron Reed," Colin said, as he cracked his knuckles. "Sweet as," Michael said, but he felt queasy as he remembered the noise Aaron's head made when he pushed him into a concrete post. "My girl went out to buy some stuff for the garden," Colin explained. "Recognized him straight away. Apparently he's still got a bandage round his head." Michael joined D and Colin's laughter, but he was worried. If Major D did get his hands on Aaron Reed, it wasn't going to be for a friendly chat. "We knew you'd want to come," D grinned. "Definitely," Michael said, faking enthusiasm. "I want those pricks to suffer." "How's Gabrielle doing anyway?" Colin asked. "Not too bad," Michael said. "I want to go up and see her, but her aunt won't let me near." "She's a good girl," D purred. "There's a real fire in her belly." Michael thought about Gabrielle as they turned onto a stretch of dual carriageway. He missed her every second she wasn't around. James spent most of Tuesday in bed and a quiet Wednesday hanging around the zoo and going to the multiplex with Bruce and Junior in the evening. Wheels called James on Thursday morning and offered him 60 quid to help sort out a problem with a money-lending racket run by the Mad Dogs. Wheels' Vauxhall pulled up in a parking bay outside a little supermarket. James sat in the passenger seat next to him. "Traffic wardens around here are psychos," Wheels said, as he pointed to a stack of 20-pence pieces in a compartment on top of the dashboard. "Stick some money in the pay and display. We shouldn't be more than 10 minutes." The first pay and display machine James came to was busted, so he had to jog 50 metres to the next one as Wheels pulled up the hood of his tracksuit top and walked into the supermarket. A teenager dressed in a veil stood behind the counter, and Wheels told her to get her father. All right, Mr. Patel, Wheels said brashly. The bell over the door jangled as James stepped in with his hoodie covering his face. My name's not Patel, the man said angrily. Do I look like a Hindu to you? You look brown, Wheels shrugged. You owe us 3 weeks' money. Now open the register or there's gonna be some shit. The shopkeeper furiously shook his bald head. I borrowed £500 from you people. I've paid that back 10 times over. You owe 3 weeks at $125 a week. That makes £375. The shopkeeper pounded his fist on his counter. I've paid enough, he insisted. You won't get another penny from me. Wheels turned and winked at James, who swept his arm along a shelf, sending tins of baby food and hot dogs clattering to the floor. Oh dear me, Wheels grinned. Accidents will happen. The shopkeeper's jowls swelled as he pointed towards the door. Leave my shop or I'll call the police. James grabbed a carousel stacked with greeting cards and upended it into a freezer stacked with frozen veg as an elderly woman stepped into the doorway. We're closed, Wheels snarled. To make sure no more customers came in, James slid a bolt across the door. I will call the police, the shopkeeper shouted as he grabbed a phone from behind the counter. Wheels flipped open a spring-loaded Kosh and smashed the handset out of the shopkeeper's hand. Bad things will happen, Mr. Patel, Wheels warned. Your shop could burn to the ground. 2 big men could come in here, drag you out onto the street and beat you senseless. Or maybe we could pick up one of your pretty little daughters. The shopkeeper scowled at Wheels as he clutched his agonized knuckles to his chest. How much is in the till? Wheels asked. I can give you 200, the shopkeeper said reluctantly, as he pressed the button to open the cash drawer under the register. James noticed a sudden change in the light as the door from the stockroom burst open. The shopkeeper's daughter charged out, brandishing a cricket bat. Don't give it to him, Dad, the teenager cried as she swung at Wheels' head. The blow missed Wheels' skull, but cracked viciously on the elbow he raised to defend himself. He screamed in pain as his Kosh clattered to the ground. James was impressed by the girl's courage, but he had to stick by Wheels if he was going to win Sasha Thompson's trust. He grabbed the girl under her armpit and snatched the bat out of her hands as he dragged her over a countertop covered in newspapers. Smash that bitch's skull, Wheels ordered. But there was no way James was going to do that. He threw the bat down and twisted the girl's arm up behind her back, then glowered at the shopkeeper. Put the paper money out of that cash drawer into a bag, or I'll break her arm. The shopkeeper gritted his teeth as he ripped a carrier bag from the hook and began stuffing it with notes. James was too tense to count, but it looked close to the $375 they'd come looking for. James snatched the bag, shoved the girl back across the counter, and looked at Wheels. You okay? Do I look okay, you dick? Wheels snapped as he grasped his elbow. I can barely move my arm. There's no way I can drive. You'd better give us the keys then, James said, as he took the bolt off the door and stepped out into the street. Unfortunately, the old dear Wheels brushed off had gone into the laundrette next door and told everyone who'd listened that the supermarket was being robbed. A nervous crowd gathered in the laundrette doorway. Someone must have called the cops, and a couple of people looked as if they were thinking about wading in. Meanwhile, Wheels still had the car keys. For God's sake, James yelled, watching in horror as Wheels struggled to pull the keys out of his jeans with a dead arm. James pushed Wheels' hand aside and grabbed the keys himself, then pressed the button to unlock the doors and walked into the road to take the driver's seat. Wheels couldn't do anything fast because of his arm. By the time he was in the passenger seat, James had the engine running and the clutch poised. Once the passenger door slammed, he took a quick look behind before pulling out and working quickly through the gearbox. "You drive well," Wheels said admiringly, pulling down his hood as James squealed around a corner. "I try my best," James grinned. But once he'd got over James's proficiency, Wheels turned angry. "Oh, this is such shit," he moaned. "My elbow's in agony. I'm going to have to ditch this car, and Sasha's going to go mental when he hears that half the street watched us leave. Why didn't you lock the shop door?" James knew he should have locked the door, but he didn't appreciate Wheels trying to lay all the blame on him. "It was my first time," he said bitterly. "If you wanted something done, you should have told me." "Oh, Christ!" Wheels screamed as he kicked down hard in the footwell. "That shopkeeper's going to pay for this." For every rich and clever criminal like Sasha Thompson, there are armies of poor, stupid criminals like Aaron Reed. Not only had Sasha arranged for the runs to rob Major D's cocaine store, he'd also set up some of his associates to buy the cocaine off them at rock-bottom prices. Aaron was 22, and his role in the murder of Owen Campbell Moore might land him with a life sentence if someone talked. But all it had earned him was 3 nights in hospital, 20 hours in a police cell, and a £400 share from selling the cocaine. He would have earned more if he'd spent the last 2 weeks stacking shelves in a supermarket. But with his card marked by the Slasher Boys, Aaron couldn't ply his usual trade selling ecstasy and marijuana in pubs, and he'd been forced into a straight job. He could have got work in a burger joint or the cinema in town, but he picked the garden centre because he didn't think he'd encounter too many Jamaican gangsters on the prowl for potting compost and spider plants. He hadn't counted upon Colin Ragg having a green-fingered girlfriend who'd been in the year below him at secondary school. "Aaron to reception, please. Aaron to reception, please." Aaron wasn't surprised to hear his name over the tannoy. The manageress was always on his back, complaining about everything from overwatering plants to spilling soil in the car park. He sauntered out of the open-air section, but picked up speed when he got inside the store where his boss might have an eye on him. As he came towards the counter, Aaron saw a large black man standing at the customer service desk with a police badge in his hand. The manageress looked annoyed, and Aaron seethed. It was out of order for the police to come after him at work, although it was exactly the kind of sly stunt they like to pull when they were trying to break you. "George Peck, Bedfordshire CID, Colin Ragg lied as he flashed the badge again. If this had been on the street, Aaron would have told the cop to either arrest him or piss off. But he'd lied about his criminal record on his job application, and he didn't want his new boss seeing him act cocky with the police. "I've got work to do," Aaron said. "Is this going to take long?" 10 minutes, Colin smiled. 15 max. "Make sure you clock out," the manageress said firmly. Colin led Aaron past the checkouts and through the 2 sets of automatic doors into the car park. "I'm just parked up over there." But Colin didn't put as much work into covering his Jamaican accent as he'd done in the store, and Aaron's heart vaulted into his mouth. He glanced around and considered running, but Colin realised Aaron was suspicious, and he ripped a pistol out of his jacket. "One move and I'll blow a hole in your back." Aaron was terrified when he saw the gun, but more terrified to realize that he'd fallen into the hands of a gang that used machetes and electric shocks to get the truth. "What is it you want?" Aaron asked. "Just shut your mouth. We're going for a little ride."